Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Collective Spotlight. I am not in super HD, but that's fine because my guest, who is a writer, artist, and everything in between of Behemoth's newest book, Cinnamon, with 3 awesome covers, is actually here to talk about the book, which actually I just finished flipping through, and I'm super excited. But without any further ado, here is our guest today, Victoria Douglas. How are you doing today, Victoria?
Hey, I'm doing fabulous.
That's awesome. How does it feel? I know cinnamon has been something that's on Behemoth's website for a really long time. It's finally in stores. Tomorrow people will have it in their hands. How does it feel?
Honestly, you just picking it up off the shelf is like the most exciting thing in the world. Like it exists and people can hold it and people can read it now, and that's like it makes it real. You know, it's been on Comixology for like a week or so, 2 weeks probably. It came out there on the 28th where it was supposed to print. So we're a little behind, but you know that's kind of par for the course for a lot of different comics right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's like, I was so glad the covers always sold me, the solicitation sold me. But now having it in my hand, getting to flip through it. Well, to be fair, there's so much we have to talk about in the next 30 minutes. I'm going to
So good.
start with just tell the people what Cinnamon is, what they can expect, what the book, what the first issue is about.
Okay, so Cinnamon is a slice of life comic with a lot of heart about a perfectly ordinary house cat named after the titular Cinnamon. And so it's just about her ordinary adventures. But then when we see things from her perspective, the world becomes a lot bigger and a lot nastier, and it turns into a gritty noir action comic with giant space lasers and mecha battles and a whole city to defend and save. And so that's really the gist of it. I mean, it's a fun idea that I've just been able to run with and do a lot of cool stuff with. So
So like you mentioned, it's an idea that you've gotten to kind of run with. Originally, I was going to ask you where the inspiration for the book came from, but as I finished it up, I kind of read your little paragraph there in the back.
absolutely,
And this is kind of loosely based off of your first ever kitten that you had while you were in college. Is that correct?
yeah. Um, it was about maybe a month before I started my senior year. Um, and my wife and I were living in a studio apartment, and she was just like a little tiny terror. And being in a studio, like there was nowhere to hide. I had to go lock myself in the bathroom to get some peace of mind. She was pretty hectic. Um, so she's chilled out a lot since then. If anything, she's definitely like the muted cat of the two because we do have two cats now. But boy, she came into our life swinging and kind of demanded to be the subject of this comic.
So you mentioned as well how like you wish you could speak her language, but for now you'll just make things up as you go. And is that kind of where the inspiration for the book was? You're sitting there in your senior year of college and you're just like, I wonder what's going through this cat's head.
Absolutely. I mean, I think like even just watching dumb shows like The Wild Thornberrys growing up, it was like, okay, well, what are cats? What's going on? Like, why are they like this? Why are you like this? um, she loved to play fight as a kitten, and so that was a big part of it. Was she would bite and claw at things, but not really like for real, just kind of messing with you, like kittens do. She was super young when we got her, so I think in general there's just this idea of like I want to meet her needs as a kitten, as like I have to take care of you. But sometimes I just have no idea what that means. And unlike a kid, like they're never going to grow up and be able to tell you.
Yeah.
So
Well, and what I love is in the back you provided what you said, and people won't be able to. You'll get to get a good look at it when you see it in person, people. But it's the
yeah,
first ever sketch of Cinnamon, and then the cover and interiors are obviously what we landed on. Talk to me about the progression of developing a character that's not human, but you're giving it some human characteristics, like you kind of did when you make Cinnamon kind of more humanoid.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think I like when I was first starting to do comics. I think there's this idea in my head of like, what do I want characters and people to look like? Because I was coming from way more of a grounded, like fine art, still lifes kind of environment where I drew everything from reference. Everything was very locked down and went by the rules, but like those weren't the comics that I wanted to make. And so I think I landed on this like kind of anthropomorphic cat, not necessarily on purpose, but it felt like a good way to distance myself from what I was making and really let it have a life of its own. Because like it really just blew my mind. Like, how do I draw an eyeball when I'm not looking at reference of an eyeball? And like without also making it look specifically like manga or Western comics, or like something that exists that I don't necessarily feel like attached to or like want to draw a gajillion times. So
and talk to me, because you mentioned you didn't want it to look like manga, you didn't want it to look like the Western art style, and I do feel like you totally went to town with your own art style. And then the like red and gray, the way you colored it, or lack thereof, however you know way more about art than me, but the colors and the lines and everything on your comic actually were really well done. Where do you get your art style from? I know you went to college for a little bit, but do you is it kind of something that you've made yourself over the course of your career?
I think, I mean, I'm definitely an amalgamation of the things that I've read and loved and appreciated. A lot of my early interest in comics came from animation, from like really kind of harebrained Japanese stuff that's like super loose, like Masaki Yuasa. And it's funny that MFKZ, like the movie, was a huge influence, because it came out on Blu-ray like right as I was considering this project. And it was just this idea of keeping things loose and not following the rules, or at least like paving my own way. So like when I sat down to really make Cinnamon, I told myself, okay, well, I want to set out a bunch of rules for how I'm going to make this, or how I'm going to draw it, or how I'm going to color it. And so I have like a whole style Bible for it that I just said, okay, well, this is what I want it to be. Like I'm seeing this in other works. And so originally, like when it was a much smaller scale project, the idea was to risograph print it, as a tiny little like little pocket zine thing.
Oh.
And so it was going to be just two colors. It was going to be black and red. Okay. And so like when it got picked up by Behemoth, I really said, okay, but I really like that's its roots, and it's really just kind of grown from there. And so I think like issue 1 is still kind of in that mode, but issues 2 and 3 introduce a bit more as far as colors.
Okay.
But still in this like real limited palette. Like everyone kind of has their own assigned color that impacts the world. Cinnamon is red. Go figure.
Yeah, well, and it's cool. It's funny. It's awesome to get that insight, because anybody who picks up this first issue, like you kind of said, you can see that original reds and blacks and a little bit of grays and whites, and that's really the color palette, at least for a first issue, you kind of use. Now, I love this light blue on this cover. That was beautiful.
Oh yeah.
It was funny. You can tell that the book is very what's the word, aesthetically pleasing. Even if you're just in it for the pictures, it's a really great book. And you mentioned that you're kind of an amalgam of some of the things you grew up reading and everything like that. So what were the things that you were reading as a youngling, and what were artists that maybe you really enjoyed following back then?
So I grew up in Japan. My father was in the Air Force, and so we went all over the place. And so I kind of got this weird, like, not like outsider view of comics, but those are the comics that I grew up with. A lot of early 90s manga. And that was originally why I was like interested in drawing was to make comics like this. And I kind of dropped that somewhere along the way where it was like, okay, I really love reading the Pokemon comics, but like what do I do now? So in late high school, early college, being in the Midwest, I started picking up a lot of weird independent stuff at like secondhand stores. I picked up a copy of Nate Powell's Swallow Me Whole, and it just like blew my mind with like the subject matter that it tries to tackle with mental illness, and the style where it's all brush pen, but very beautifully rendered, very loose. And I think I kind of demanded that I tug on that string for a few years. Things like Gleam by Freddie Carrasco are a huge influence. Just very like loose gestural line art. And so then I think like I really dug my heels into this idea of being an independent comic artist. But then Cinnamon took on a life of its own, and it's like, no, it's got to be total action. It's got to be pull out all the stops. I just want this to go like as hard as possible. And so like in some ways, I think that's just a product of where I like super duper originally came from, which was a lot of manga and anime. Without wanting to like appropriate it or steal this idea of manga, I didn't want it to feel like manga. But I definitely wanted that, protagonist against the world, but they don't wear a cape and fly around.
Yeah. Well, and I love it. And you mentioned like kind of a little bit like action and everything like that. I hate to compare things to anything, but I feel like this comparison is so weird and out there. Nobody should be offended unless, you're Vin Diesel. It feels like Fast and the Furious. If Vin Diesel was Cinnamon, and you've got kind of a it's an action movie almost starring Cinnamon.
Yes.
So you got that feel across in the first issue. I mean, from first page more or less to last page, it's a Mad Max almost action book, and it's kind of cool.
It's very very lighthearted on like the lore and the world building. It really just exists for the action set pieces. Yep. I wanted it to look cool, and I think like I'm given a lot of allowance to go there because it's all in Cinnamon's imagination, and so like the cityscape will change itself to be exactly what we need for the scene because like that's the point. There's no continuity in Big Kitchen City because there can't be. It's still just an apartment.
And people, I'm not going to spoil anything, but you do a great job. From the first like 3 pages, you pretty much go visually from the apartment to what Cinnamon is seeing, and you do it so flawlessly and so cleanly that you almost don't notice that anything happened. You're like, oh, did I miss a page? And it's just that transition to what CATNIP does to Cinnamon, kind of.
Yes, very much so.
So Victoria, being the artist, writer, letterer, colorist, design, layout, how long have you been working on Cinnamon? How long does it take you to get an issue done? How much time do you have to put into this?
That's a good question. I think Cinnamon's been very like fundamental for me. It's what I worked on like kind of in the background of my senior year of college. But that was with like a full workload. So I finished the first issue in like, what amounts to a year, but is that necessarily fair? And then pretty immediately after graduating, signed it with Behemoth and Happy Tank. And then it was about 8 months to really figure out, well, what does Cinnamon look like as a series, and then produce issues 2 and 3. So I think right now I'm sitting at about between 2 to 4 months per issue. I think eventually I'd like to be sitting at about 3 months. And I think that's not like my limit, but it's a full workload trying to do all jobs. a little intimidating. It certainly has its perks in just having full creative control. But I guess it also, like, there's something that comes with collaboration and working on a team that doesn't get injected to that. So this really becomes a function of, like, what's my vision for Cinnamon, and what do I want it to be, like, genuinely. And then it's kind of up to me to pull it off. And so, like, even issues 2 and 3 went through some pretty hefty rewrites, like towards the end of the issues, where it's like, okay, I could follow this through, or I could. And I'm super happy with not just issue 1, but the full, like, 3-issue spread that we're coming out with immediately. I think, especially if people read issue 1 and love what they see, then they're definitely along for the ride.
I think exciting. A lot of people that pick up Cinnamon over the next week or month or whatnot in comic stores are going to be pleasantly surprised. You talked about, not necessarily getting to collaborate all that much because you're the artist and writer and everything, but you also mentioned, signing with Happy Tank and Behemoth. What's it been like working with Kevin, who I know he's over there with Happy Tank, yes, and Nathan's over there with Behemoth? What's it been like working with that group, at least in the capacity that you have had to work with them?
It's fabulous. I mean, they took a big chance on me as a untested new all-in-one creator. So I'm immediately super grateful for the opportunity. I wish I could bottle up Kevin's energy and just take it all. It's just absolutely infectious. So I think it's been a wild ride. I think Behemoth is doing amazing right now, and kind of, like, surprising everyone with just what they choose to greenlight, what they choose to give off to the world, and honestly, it's like all A+ stuff. And that was like the big reason why I chose to sign with them, is because I got the vibe, and they got the vibe, and they knew that what they're putting out, their readers would want to read Cinnamon, and it all just kind of fits together. So it's been good. I think it's absolutely the perfect home for Cinnamon. And, like, I'm definitely proud to have my book up alongside so many cool series. It's pretty wild.
It's kind of cool because, like, we started carrying Behemoth, a year, maybe a little under a year ago. And I remember from even then looking on their website, and there was this talk of a Cinnamon book. It was Cinnamon. It was the A cover with the yellow. And it was just there, and I kept thinking, I want to order that. And I'd click on it and say, coming 2021 or whatnot. And I'm just like, all right, when that comes out, we're going to order it. And it's so crazy for it to finally be here, because I feel like your book was kind of on the front page of Behemoth's website for a long time, rightfully so, because they were trying to get everybody to understand what was about to come out. What is the plan? So you talked about how, like, issue 2 and 3 had to get some rewrites, but what is your plan for the story arc of Cinnamon? Are we expecting a mini series, or do you want to do you see yourself writing more stories in that world?
I definitely, like, the plan right now is definitely to go back for at least in issues 4, 5, and 6. Okay. I have about 12 issues worth of content. I have the general story arc up to that point. So I'm looking at anywhere between 6 and 12 issues, depending on, like, how things get shuffled around or condensed. Nice. I mean, there's so many places that the story can go, and it's all genuinely based on my own experiences as cat owner. Partially because, like, it's better to write about what you know, but a year after having Ripley, we got a second cat, and there's no second cat in Cinnamon yet. Yet. And boy, is it gonna be, like, bombastic. I'm super excited.
Yeah, and I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but it seems like the world, you mentioned you already got 12, idea for up to 12, but it seems like the kind of world that you can always, it's kind of a sandbox. You can kind of play in it as long as you 100%. Want, because, you go to somebody else's apartment, that's a different city, or you go to a cat cafe, that's a whole different metropolis, and you can kind of do that if you wanted.
Yeah, it's it's really limitless. I mean, a lot of like I started getting the comparisons made to Courage the Cowardly Dog, which I think is apt in a lot of ways because like it is truly just limited to whatever you can think of. You throw something at the wall and see what sticks, and you just have to come up with a version for it. So like every single cat toy could be its own thing, and honestly, like that's magical for me. And so like even just like on Instagram in my DMs, I'll get people talking to me about their cat stories and things that their cats have done, and I think that's super powerful. Like I'm harnessing the energy of every cat lover and owner to yeah make this a sandbox comic where it doesn't like I don't want it to overstay its welcome. Like I want to end the story when it feels right to end it. I know that I have a lot more juice and a lot more to do, and it never really has to stop. Like there's no end point per se.
So we talked a lot about how Cinnamon's a little bit based off, you know, your early days with your kitten, little bit about your early things that you liked reading that dealt with mental health and things like that. Um, as a pet owner as well, you know, my mind then goes to, will we end up seeing some stuff with Cinnamon and the owner? You know, will that be a plot thread that we could see later, or is it mostly going to be Cat World stuff that you're thinking of?
I think it's a little bit of both. You know, I want the owner to be developing alongside the cat. Um, and so who knows, there may be special issues that focus more on Lady as a person or focus on the real interactions between people. Because that's something that isn't necessarily the focus, but it can be. Like we can step aside to focus on all these things, and maybe she's got some crazy view of her life that kind of impacts the visual style. Like even that doesn't need to be so tied to reality. I think a lot of comics that broach serious topics tend to do it in a very serious way. But I'm definitely interested in shaking things up and maybe like tackling these not issues. Like I don't want it to be like dark and grim for one issue and then go back to light and fun, but just you know, how do you move through the day when you can't punch the problem? What does it mean to just get through things and overcome obstacles? I mean, I think that's the core idea behind Cinnamon as well. Is just I'm going to get through this, whatever this is.
Yeah, yeah, and I really, you know, I can't say it enough. I'm excited for everybody to get the book in their hands, and I'm jealous of the Comixology people that may have already gotten a chance to read it over the last 2 weeks. But and I know I mentioned that at the beginning, but now that we've sat here for about 20 minutes, again, how does it feel that the book is finally, you know, something that you worked on in college that is so close to you because of the source material being your cat and everything like that? Just how does it feel?
Yeah.
And to also have a cat, I hate to say it like this, but like to have a cat book out, you know, a book for the cat people, like, you know, they're always kind of joke books. They're not really, this is the main character is a badass cat. Like, how does it feel?
I could not be happier. Like this is really a big success for me. I'm super excited to be doing what I love and making comics about things that I love. And not only just happy in the act of doing it, but I'm just so like I put my seal of approval on this comic. Like it is no reservations, the thing that I want to be giving to people right now. I really feel like it hits my vision, and it really tells the story that I want to tell. And every issue just adds more and more and more. That I just like it really is like from me to you, a comic to read. And honestly, like I think that's what comics are all about to me is and this goes for a lot of different media. Just like when you sit down to watch a movie, the opening credits roll, you get a movie, and then the end credits roll, and whatever it is the director chose to give you, like that's what you engage with. And so like you can walk away from a movie or a comic with some idea planted or some feeling at the end of it. And like I couldn't be happier to be a part of that process on the other side of the table. It's definitely a dream come true. Like this cinnamon's been a long time coming, and it's really like that just monumental thing for me. I'm so excited to have it in people's hands.
And what was really cool was that they let you, because a lot of times in comics, and actually I think Behemoth has a good habit of trying to keep you guys involved in everything. But you actually got to do all 3 of the covers as well for Cinnamon, which I thought was
Yes.
really cool. No variant cover artist; it was all you.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
is the plan moving this one? We got 3 covers. We have the white cover here. We have the C cover, which is the blue, and then we had the A cover with yellow, which we don't have right now. Is the plan for you to do multiple covers as well when the next issues come out?
I think so. I mean, doing covers is honestly my favorite thing in the world. I mean, I love making the comics, but like I come from a background of illustration where the end goal was always to do book covers. And that kind of that got sidelined when I realized that making comics could be an option. And so like comics has become my true love. Like I'm totally down for it, but like making covers is always like just a gem in my workflow. And I love being able to do it. So like even I want to bring on other artists to do variant covers in the future. But I'm sure that you'll always see at least a variant cover or 2 from me.
That's awesome. And I can tell you have fun because obviously the character is the same, but the styles are so different across each cover. It's awesome. It's really great. Your artwork. Actually, before we get done, I have to ask you: is this your first published comic book?
It is definitely my biggest. I have a couple of anthology credits and other short form comics of like 8 to 12 pages.
Okay.
I've been rolling with that for a few years. This is my first big distributed serialized comic for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. It's an honor, honestly, to have you on the show because when you make it big time, we're gonna go back and be like, "Yo, you remember episode like 68 where we had Victoria? It was awesome. We talked about Cinnamon issue 1. Gosh, that's ages ago." But no, I really think watch out, world. Victoria Douglas is here to stay. You don't even need to pick up. Trust me, pick up a copy issue of Cinnamon. But the art is beautiful. The storytelling's great. There's so much heart to it. I hope everybody picks up the book. We ordered a ton of copies through Behemoth, so we'll have them here throughout the week. But honestly, Victoria, thank you so much for coming on and talking about the book. We got a couple minutes left. For anybody that might be joining us late, because we actually have gone up to like 10 viewers, 12 viewers watching live. Let them know what they can expect if they come out to the shop tomorrow and pick up a Cinnamon #1.
You can expect a good laugh. You can expect a heartwarming action comic. You can expect to just, you'll want to get some nice wet food for your cat afterwards. Treat them to something nice. I hope it can give you the warm fuzzies and make you chuckle a little. It's just about having fun. It's a real fun comic.
So since we have 8 viewers, I'm gonna put it. Hopefully, most of them are subscribers here in the store. I'm gonna put out a challenge. Anybody who buys an issue of Cinnamon here at the store and then takes a picture of themselves reading it with their cat on their lap or sitting anywhere near them will get 2 free stamps when they come in the store. Tag us on social media, Collective CCG. You can tag Victoria as well. Victoria, you're on social media as well, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
What's the handle they can follow you at if they want to follow you?
So Instagram is blackbit.exe. And my website is blackbit.world.
Awesome. And then we got some fans coming in here. We got Melonhead. And then we got Linda Seller saying yes. So
awesome.
Victoria,
my mom.
Thank you. That's your mom. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's my mom and brother, yeah.
Awesome. Well, no, we're glad we could have so many people. And like I said, anybody who takes a picture, and honestly, if you're not local, take a picture of you reading Cinnamon and tag us, and we'll figure out something to send you. We'll send you a free store exclusive or something. But Victoria, thank you so much for coming on. Best of luck with the book. The book is Cinnamon #1 on store shelves everywhere tomorrow, and especially at the Collective. But best of luck with the book. I can't wait to see what issue 2 and beyond holds. And hopefully we can bring you back here at the end of the story arc.
I'd absolutely love to. That would be so fun. This has been a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. You have a good one, and best of luck with the book. Mom says she's proud. So thank you guys so much for watching another episode of Collective Spotlight. Thank you again to my guest, Victoria. They've been awesome. The book Cinnamon is going to be on store shelves. This is the B or C cover. You've got a B cover here. All of it done by Victoria. Interiors, letters, design, covers, all of it. So if you can grab it either at the Collective or at your local comic shop. I've been Danny. Victoria Douglas was our guest. Please follow wherever you can. Awesome creator, and we will see you guys next time. Take it easy.